Hi, welcome so much to our fireside chat today with an amazing group of legal professionals, women legal professionals, to talk about empowering women in law. I'm so excited today to be joined by Ashley, Krista, and Danielle, and really looking forward to hearing their insights throughout the next hour or so. My name is Ashlyn Donahue. I'm the Director of Legal here at Link Squares, based out of the Boston, Massachusetts area. And I'm going to kick it over to Ashley to get us started with some introductions.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ashlyn. My name is Ashley Jones, and I am commercial counsel here at Link Squares. And also out of the Boston area. And I'll kick it over to Krista.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Krista Russell here. Glad to see some familiar names and faces here on the webinar this morning. I am Deputy General Counsel at Airbus US and adjunct professor of law in the Transactional Skills Department at the University of Miami School of Law.
And I'm Danielle Shear. I'm the Chief Trust Officer, which manages legal and a bunch of other things at Commvault, which is a publicly traded cyber resilience firm.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm super excited, and thanks all of you for tuning in as well. So one of the things that I love to hear a little bit about is how folks landed in the decision to pursue a career in law. I'd love to hear a little bit, maybe Danielle, you can kick us off here. What prompted you to decide to go to law school and become a lawyer?
Well, I was backpacking actually through Greece, and I had no intention of coming home and going to law school. I applied to go to law school because I didn't know what else to do. I was a philosophy major, and it just seemed like the right next step. And so my father bought me a ticket home through Switzerland, and I am a sucker for Swiss chocolates. So that is the only reason I ended up getting back on the plane to come back to the States to go to law school. And then it was a journey. It was a journey to figure out what sort of lawyer I wanted to be. Just like doctors, they're all different kinds. And I started at a big firm. I moved in-house. I moved up in the in-house world, and I have found sort of my place, but I still dabble in a lot of things that are not in this legal swim lane. So it's a constant journey. I kind of fell into it a little bit because I didn't know what else to do. And sometimes that works out and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I think that resonates really well with me. I went to law school not really wanting to be a lawyer. I wanted to own a business and run a business and felt like it was a good way to learn, but you find your path. It comes to you.
Do you think that led you to in-house, Ashlyn? Because I found that people the more entrepreneurial spirit that you have, the more you love business or have run a business or want to run a business. I tend to see a lot of those people, at least present day, in-house.
I think so. I never worked at a law firm. I went straight to working at a company. I've worn a number of hats in and outside of legal over the years. And yeah, absolutely. But I think that's probably rings true. Krista, what about you? Oh, go ahead.
Did you start at firms?
I didn't. And Ashlyn and I share a similar path. And Ashley, what is your story the same? You've not spent any time at a firm as well?
I spent about 6 months at a firm and then followed my heart to Link Squares. I said in-house is where I belong.
Yeah, for me, Ashlyn, just to answer your question, I mean, I went kicking and screaming and away from being a lawyer my whole life. I was one of those kids that everyone, every teacher, my parents, everyone said I was going to be a lawyer. So I did everything possible to not be a lawyer for as long as possible before I succumbed to my fate. But in doing that, it was really important, and this is why I'm so passionate about this topic, is I was charting my own path. I wanted nothing to do with a traditional legal path. I didn't want to work a day of my life in a law firm. Nothing against anybody that has or does currently. I loved business, and to me, I didn't really see prior to law school how I could work in business as a lawyer. I didn't really understand that path. So when I did finally make the call to go, after years and years of procrastinating and just avoiding, I just didn't want the traditional path at all. So carving my own journey through and out was really important to me.
Yeah, I think that definitely is similar scenario. as mine, Krista, and I'll let Ashley share hers as well. So Ashley, what led you to law school, and kind of how did you find your way in house?
Yeah, I think I have maybe the most non-traditional path to law school. I was a fine arts major, and I specialized in socially engaged practices, which meant I was doing a lot of art projects in public spaces. And in doing so, we were running into a lot of ordinances and legal restrictions that we just didn't understand. You know, we were looking to better the culture of our communities and impart art on the masses. And as I was getting towards the end of my tenure, my BFA, I, was faced with the challenge, what do I do next? And I said, well, I want to understand these roadblocks and I want to understand how I could, use some of them to my benefits, how I could help others in similar situations, and ended up applying to law school. Um, Throughout that journey, I tried a little bit of everything. I tried the DA's office, I tried, doing a clerkship throughout law school, and I found that transactional business is really what I understood the most and really what excited me. And being able to really see through all of your decisions in a business format has been just really exciting. And I really love working with the stakeholders in an in-house scenario. And that's really what I've been chasing since I started out.
It's awesome. I think, it's interesting because none of us have the same one path to get to where we are today, but we've all kind of landed in similar scenarios, and I'm sure our careers will evolve and change over the years, and what that looks like and feels like. But in every person's career, there is a pivotal moment where they have to make a decision on like what the next right step is. Like, what is that next step going to be for them? And I know for me, there was a period of time where I wasn't doing any legal work. I was in operations, running an operations team and kind of making that decision. What do you do next? Do you go back into more, quote unquote, traditional legal professional work, or do you stick the operations route? And that was a pivotal decision for me. And I'm guessing you all have faced similar decisions during your career. And I'd love to hear a little bit about those. Danielle, if you want to kick us off.
I was on mute. No, start with somebody else first. I want to hear some of these, good stuff. Ashley.
Ashley, yeah.
Sure. Ashwin, I actually had a similar experience. My first position out of law school was contracts manager for a nonprofit. And, at the outset, I thought that was going to be more of a legal focused role of negotiating contracts and working on those, but it really was keeping track of things, making sure the operations flowed smoothly, making sure everyone within the organization was really informed. And as I got through my first year and a half there, I was like, is this the best use of my skill set? But also, is it what makes me the happiest? And I made the difficult decision to leave the nonprofit sector, which I do love and still hold close to my heart. But I really had to make that pivot to build my skill set and to um, follow my passions.
Yeah. Krista, what about you?
This sounds unbelievable to me 15 years into my career. But I want to be honest and share this because it's crazy. When I was in law school, I took out loans, of course. And I mean, I went to school 15 years ago. It was $70,000 to live and to go to school per year for the 3 years. I had to break the rule of not working during law school. Like, I didn't have the luxury of just waiting till the summer for an associate gig, which I didn't really want anyway. So I had to work through law school. I worked a ton of jobs. But starting my second year of law school, I took a job as a receptionist, a literal answering the phone receptionist at a concession company in New York City that was a concessionaire for the Schubert organization that owns and operates Broadway theaters. I did that for 5 weeks. And then on the end of the 5th week, the person that was the director of business operations was terminated, their employment. And like the way this company worked, they're like, hey, you could probably do this. And I'm like, yes, I can. This is exactly what I'm like thinking. I have to convince someone that I can be a lawyer, right? Like I was on the bottom half of my class, guys, like bottom half, okay? Maybe the bottom quarter, I don't even know. Just it's all a long time ago. I had to work. I did not have the normal path, and I didn't care about the normal path. I literally was answering phones. Then I went into operations. I was doing business operations for this concession arm, which coincidentally involved a lot of figuring out how to buy things for cheaper and sell them for more, which meant a lot of contract work, which felt like legal work. It meant a lot. We had a lot of employees, lots and lots, hundreds of employees in New York. I did a lot of unemployment hearings, like a lot of random things that were tangential to law, but not really law. And eventually turned it into a dual business and legal role. I got to this pivotal moment towards the end of law school where I had to make a decision because the company was offering me this opportunity. It's in a completely non-legal setting to go to China and learn how to source like this plastic product so we could bring it back to the States cheaper, which I kind of looked at as the opportunity of a lifetime just graduating law school, but it meant I had to delay taking the bar until the winter session, which also seemed like a terrible idea. Because it just appears that you failed the bar when you take it in the winter, even if it's on purpose, right? Like it's just how it looks. So I made the choice. I made the call. I did the project, a long-term sourcing project. I learned so much about business, about operations, about manufacturing. As it turns out, I'm a supply chain attorney, right? So it's all like coincidental in the end, and I have been my entire career. But I had to make that call to kind of postpone the normal path. You don't go to law school for all that time and not take the bar. My parents were literally losing their minds, like not because they were paying for it or anything, but like, oh my God, are you not going to finish what you started? And of course I was, but I had to pause so that I could have this opportunity and let it play out. And I took the bar, passed the bar in 2 states at the same time, which I was really proud of at the time. And then I got fired from that job. Literally 2 weeks after, I didn't get fired. They said, we think we're going to go separate ways. Like, we didn't really have anything for you. And I was like, I just pushed off taking the bar, did this project, and like, now what? So then I had to take another non-legal role because I had to work. I couldn't afford my rent. I couldn't afford anything. I couldn't afford to pay back the loans that I was already, because I graduated more than 6 months ago. So my loans were already like in process of repayment. And so I took a job as like a glorified receptionist essentially at a real estate investment trust. And it was like days after their IPO dropped. There was maybe 12 employees at the time. And I started like, I didn't even tell them, I didn't put on my resume that I went to law school, but like I did nothing because I didn't think they would hire me because I thought I was overqualified, but I needed a good paying job in the city. And I did that. And like, sure enough, like I get my bar exam results and like I start to like tell people and they realize that I can do all this more work, and it transitioned into not quote unquote legal work. Like I didn't have a legal title, but I was doing legal work like officially for the company. And then I was able to catapult that to my next actual role, which was a legal role. And it's just snowballed from there. And right now I have this like great career, and I've worked for huge companies, Fortune 50 companies. I work for Airbus now as a deputy GC. But it all started because of taking a risk, like having to make a right turn when everyone else was going left, which was really, really scary at the time. And I think we're all faced with those moments, right? Like particularly women, sometimes I think we have to make more of those choices than our male counterparts, particularly in the legal profession. And I'm not saying that I knew it was going to be the right choice. Like I said, I made the choice to stop, stay, push off the bar, and then I lost that job 2 weeks after I took the bar. Completely unexpectedly. I thought I was going to be there for a very long time. And so I think that like for me, really, there's no like stepping stone. Like it looks like it when I come back 15 years later, but really it was like, I felt like someone dropped me like a hamster in a maze and was like, figure out your way out. And it all looks so intentional now, but the fact of the matter is I was just trying to figure it out like so many other people.
I love that. I think, there's two sides of every story. The way that you can frame your career comes across so differently depending on how you talk about it. And I think that's something that, as women, we really need to be conscious of making sure that we're sharing the best sides of ourselves and when advocating for positions or what we're going to do next. Danielle, I'd love to hear a little bit from you about kind of how you landed where you are today.
So I love those two stories because they're both very different. They took different paths and they had to respond to different outcomes in life. I started at a firm in Manhattan, and I was representing companies in M&A or in IPOs. And because I had seen enough of them in a handful of years, I was pattern matching what was going on inside companies. It was really interesting to learn that, if you needed some information, the CFO doesn't necessarily have it. He's got to ask this person, and then this person might have it, or, I wasn't here when that happened. And I just saw that over and over and over again. And I'm efficiency is sort of like the definition of me. And I get stressed if I'm in a situation that is inefficient. So like airports are not good for me. Anything that is inefficient. And I just thought, I think I could add value here. It seems so disorganized. And this wasn't one company, this was like dozens. So I really wanted to get in-house. I moved when I took my first in-house job. My title was in-house counsel, like that was in my offer letter. I took a big pay cut to get there. I got paid mostly in stock options. It was a private company, which wasn't worth much at the time. And I was right about the ability to help the company be more efficient. It's like that's nobody's job when you're a startup and you're just trying to run as fast as you can. And I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed who I was working with. And so one day, as 2 years in, right before our IPO, like maybe 6 months before our IPO and everything started to really get started, I was really good friends with the office manager, who was also the receptionist, who was also stocking the cafeteria, like that's a startup. And she was ordering business cards, and she's like, what am I supposed to put as the title on your business card? I'm like, that's a good question. Let me think about it. And I looked at my offer letter and it says in-house counsel. And I'm like, that's not a title. So I was like, general counsel. You're supposed to put general counsel on that business card. And she's like, okay, what does she know? And I started putting it on my signature block, and nobody noticed or cared, by the way. And I didn't, to be honest, when I started, which was back in, 2008, 2009, like there were general counsels of companies, but like they're not part of any of our worlds. But there were not general counsels of like startups. There were not general counsel. The pendulum has swung in the past several years. So, and then we got ready to go IPO, and the bankers came in and they're like, oh, great, you have a general counsel. And people are like, wait, what? Who's that? And I'm like, it's me. And nice of you to, read my signature block all of these months. And so I just stuck my neck out. And I think that risk taking, especially in women, is something that we need to do more of. And I did it again. So this is my third public company that I'm at. We took that company public, and then it sold, it went private. I joined another public company, and that sold and went private. And I'm at my third public company. And I just took a page out of the old Danielle playbook, and I'm like, my title is Chief Legal Officer, but I have noticed over the years that despite how hard I try to convince people that I am not scary, when the lawyer enters the room, the energy changes. Everything crackles. I have to button up. What are they here to do? And how are they going to kill my deal? Or something else, just awful. And I have been great one-to-one and team-to-team over the years. And, people who know me, they know that like I'm a very friendly lawyer, and I like to help get deals done. I like to help, move things along. I like to help people achieve their goals. But I'm not only in those situations. I'm oftentimes in situations where somebody wants to bring me into a customer call, and it's like, oh, the lawyer's here. Well, I need to get my lawyer in here too. And that's really not what I'm here to do. So I changed my title. Title is Chief Trust Officer. So I don't just manage legal, but I manage compliance, and I manage real estate, and I manage enterprise risk. And most of what I do is manage trust in the organization. And all of a sudden, I'm able to get into rooms and into meetings that otherwise, just by having the lawyer in the title, was a blocker. And so anyway, I think be innovative yourself and work on being comfortable taking risks.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think it would be the same response if you were a man? Like to the lawyer in the room kind of, or is it like more, is it more scary because you're a female lawyer, or is it just lawyer, period?
It's a great question. It's more scary because I'm a female lawyer.
Yeah.
So you got two dings. One, you're a lawyer. That does change the energy in a room. But two, you're a woman. And that always changes the energy in a room. Always, 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 until the team gets to know you. And actually, I think it should.
Can you expand on that a little, Danielle?
Businesses have gotten into a lot of trouble, both from a top line and from a compliance perspective over the years, in a back room of boys. The data shows that women inside companies make those companies more successful. Companies run by women are some of the highest, most profitable companies we have right now. So I'm okay with the energy in the room changing when I walk into it or when another woman walks into it, because we're bringing talent, we're bringing performance, we're bringing professionality.
Thanks for sharing that. These are all such great stories, and I love that. But one thing really stuck out to me throughout each of them is everyone's been faced with obstacles in their career, and they've had to overcome obstacles and barriers that might be in place because you're a woman. And I'd love to hear, Crystal, we'll start with you, an example of an obstacle you faced as a woman in the legal profession and kind of how you succeeded across it.
Yeah, I mean, I think our entire path is an obstacle. I'll give you a couple examples maybe, but I mean, I'll tell you the lesson at the top, which is I'm unapologetic about my roles as a wife, as a mother, as a stepmother, as a very involved single parent of my 3 children, like, and bonus mom to the other 4, like, I'm unapologetic about it, and I don't, because I find that my male counterparts are like, they're getting Father of the Year awards for missing an hour to take a kid to 1 doctor appointment a year, right? When like this is what we're expected to do, and just make up the hours, right? So I do not apologize for what is necessary to me. I will say, like, my transition to motherhood, I was at FedEx at the time. Actually, when I had all 3 of my kids, I was at FedEx, and I didn't know, like, I couldn't figure out how to still be like a very high performing individual contributor and manager and be a mom, and like without compromising a significant portion of both of those things, and like also just figure out my identity as a new mom. Right? Like, I couldn't figure it out. And I was trying to navigate the, like, how many, do I like work from home a couple days? Do I work in the office? Like, how do I travel with work? Like, what is it? And for me, I just, probably because of a point of desperation, frankly, I was previously married and with a partner that was not available, let's say that. And I just had to do it, right? Like, and I think sometimes a mentality as mothers is we just have to figure it out. And so I was like, I'm not willing to give up this career that I worked in, my butt off for to get here at a great company with, in a great role with work that is really meaningful, substantive, impactful work for the company. And I'm not willing to be like a half present mother either. And not that there's anything wrong with people that prioritize career over motherhood. It just, for me, I wanted both. And I said, I'm going to have both. And sometimes that meant, like, for the first year after I had my son, like, I just took him on all my work trips with me, and I would bring my mom or a friend or a cousin. I've brought so many people along on work trips, like, and I just made it happen, right? I figured out a way that it could work for me. I was unwilling to, like, not be part of key deals, which meant that I had to work non-traditional hours, like, right? Like, I have to put my kid to bed, you know what the nighttime routine looks like, particularly when you have infants or toddlers, if you can predict it at all. and I would, go to sleep for a couple hours and wake up and work for a couple, like just whatever it was. Probably my biggest obstacle was an interpersonal relationship, not like just a friend that I had brought into the company that ended up being hired there, like that I trusted with like sensitive information, that I had found out was like using that to try to push me out of a promotion, right? And this was a man versus woman kind of thing where two people are up for the same role. I shared something like really awesome on a deal that I was working on, and this person went and blabbed it to a bunch of people, so that I ended up looking bad and didn't end up applying for the promotion because of the optics of it, which I think was probably the intention. Like I've learned, like I don't trust anyone. Like I know, Danielle, you have the chief trust officer. It's important in business. My colleagues trust me, but on a personal level, like my name, my reputation, my integrity is the only thing that I have control of on a day-to-day basis.
That to anybody else, and that is a hard lesson to learn. We all learn a hard lesson to learn. I have been burned too. I just want to say, I love that you started with motherhood. I love it. I didn't learn that until recently. And I have made so many mistakes. This is not my obstacle, but I just want to comment on Krista. I went back to the office after my first kid 4 days after I gave birth. Not only was that like physically, emotionally, incredibly traumatic, but it was a terrible optic to the young women in the organization. And I didn't take a full maternity with the second, because FaceTime up until COVID was how you got ahead. It's how you develop trust. And if you weren't there, then you were missing it. And that was so much the story of sort of my entire early career up until COVID.
Why did you do that after, like, were you afraid of missing out?
Because my identity was work. I didn't have an identity that was a mom yet. My identity was totally work, and I missed that identity in 4 days, and I needed to get back to it.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I did take 6 weeks for my first son, but my second I took 2 weeks, because I was so like, not what's going to happen, who's going to get ahead of me, not that, but like I couldn't figure out what to do with myself. Yes, I was like obviously occupied with the throes of motherhood, right? But I was like, well, there's a deal that's happening. Like my FedEx cuts you off. Like you cannot get on your work phone, your computer, nothing. Like you cannot access it because of the short-term disability.
That's a great call. But the integration that you're talking about, and it's a choice you make. The choice you make, unapologetic about the choices you make. And I do so much better at that now, because I just recently I had a conversation with my CEO. He wants me to show up somewhere physically, and it happens to be April vacation here in Massachusetts. I get very few weeks with my kids that they're not in school. And I was like, you're important to me, but they're more important to me. So, and of course, like, what are you going to say to that? And the issue is you can have those conversations now, I think, post-COVID, and you can say, do you have a performance issue with me? Like, let's talk about that. But me showing up personally is like, I'm not going to be guilted into that.
But do you also have the confidence to do that earlier in your career? Because I didn't.
No.
And I didn't have the courage, the confidence, or I'm not even sure like I had the talent to, to where I do now. I feel comfortable 15 years into my career to do this. Even, when I had kids 7 years ago, like I started to figure it out.
But
if I was in my third year, my second year of practice, I don't think I would have. And that's where we systemically have to change it, right? We have to make that shift.
I don't know how that's going to work, but I think leaders need to flow it down. So now that I know, now that you know,
yes.
I have a lot of women on my team, and I have to make sure that I don't treat them the way that I was treated on the way up. And I have to encourage them to be unapologetic about the choices they make. And I find myself in this trap all the time. I called somebody who's in the UK, and it was like 7 a.m. my time, and I just wanted to chat, and she wasn't available, and I was like irritated. And she was on the train, she was trying to get somewhere, for work. And the truth is I had to remind myself, do I have a problem with her performance? Or was I just irritated that she wasn't available when I want her to be available? Yes. I don't have an issue with her performance. She's my highest performer. So you have to train your brain.
I think it's interesting to hear. I have 3 little kids under 8. I did take the parental leave that I was given, the full amount. but it didn't make it any easier to come back. And I've definitely been, you know, had folks make comments to colleagues of mine like, oh, she won't come back. She had a baby. Or she won't want that promotion, or she won't want this job because she's got little kids. I've had folks say to my face, like, are you sure you really want to take that job? It's going to be a lot of work. Like, you have little kids. Shouldn't you be doing that? And I think that's a narrative that needs to change for sure.
Yeah, because no one
Starts
would
with
ever
them.
say that to a male counterpart. Nobody would ever say that.
No, no. Ashley, what about you? Have you what kind of obstacles have you, faced in your career?
I really think the obstacles I faced in my career, especially early on, was boundary setting. And I found myself being very hungry early in my career, going above and beyond, working extensive hours, and not prioritizing myself while doing so. Work was becoming more important than any other aspect of my life, but it wasn't yielding the happiness and satisfaction to make you feel good, satisfied on a day-to-day basis. And it took a while for me to um, reassess what was important to me and how to set those boundaries, but also how to advocate for those boundaries. Because we all know when you start a job or start something new and you're putting 150% into it, you're working 12 to 15-hour days, and then if you stop doing that, you are kind of looked at as being a lower performer or not doing your job, when in reality you have been going above and beyond the whole time and realized this is a 40 to 50 hour a week commitment that I'm getting paid for. I need to reassess and reevaluate what I'm putting into it and what I'm getting out of it. And I think it's something I still work on all the time, setting boundaries, especially, as you are thinking about starting a family and making those kind of personal decisions. I have, Ashlyn, to a point that you made, been faced with people saying, like, are you sure you want to take this career path? Are you sure you want to keep doing what you're doing? Because when you have kids, are you going to have enough time for them? Are you going to have enough time for yourself? Are you going to have enough time for your husband? And I think dealing with that outside of work makes it really hard to deal with it inside of work as well. So I think setting up the boundaries along those lines, but also giving yourself permission to build your own path and trust in the decisions that you're making. People are going to have their opinions no matter what you do. And just knowing that their opinions are only worth the power that you give them. If you give their opinions no power, then they're just words floating in the air. And I think that's really important.
I love that.
Well said.
Yeah. Um, Danielle, what about you? Any specific obstacles that stick out? I know, um, you want to
So
share?
many, because the path to my position is littered with people who are trying to cut you off at the knees. So many, and so many come from other women, by the way, of an older generation. I call it the Queen Bee generation, who didn't learn how important it was to reach a hand down and pull the next woman up, how impactful and important that could be for yourself, your own success in that room. Um, but but let me just switch it a little bit. Like, what do you do? What do you learn from these obstacles? Like, how do you build resilience, right? How do you bounce back from these? I have a couple of things that I have been working on, and it's not easy. It's very simple. I hope it'll make sense when I explain it, because it's so simple. But there are, I don't know, 50 plus people in this webinar right now. In the last couple of months, somebody has done something to irritate you or to hurt you or to frustrate you. How do you handle that is something that you need a strategy for. And it depends on who they are in your world. Are they a peer? Are they somebody above you? Are they an executive? Is it an advisor? And you need to, what I like to think about is this a person that I have high trust with, and a person that is sort of high value, that like they perform? And I sort of say, if it's high trust and high
Oh, we might have
value, that's a relationship that's very hard to break. It's not unbreakable, but it's hard to break. If I have somebody who I perform, I just try to figure out, like, who is this person in my life? And then I try to figure out what's the strategy for dealing with it. And what I have found with superiors over and over again is I have to get clear about what it is I want. And so often people come to your manager or whatever, and they have a problem they want to address, but they haven't even really figured out how to state the problem. They're upset. That clearly comes out when you're talking about it, but what is your problem and what do you want? And you have to be able to do that for yourself before you can get anybody to help address it for you. So I think about that constantly, and I gotta tell you, at least 50% of the time, I don't need anybody to solve my problem. I know what I want. I'm just gonna go do it, right? I'm just gonna go get it. Sometimes I need to form alliances. This is my problem, and this is what I want. Can you give me some feedback? Do you think I'm wrong about this? Is there any more information I need to gather? And maybe that opens my perspective, and maybe I've just formed an alliance. They're like, no, you're right. Let's stick together on this. So the answer doesn't come from outside in terms of overcoming obstacles and building resilience. It comes from inside. What do you want? Like, what is the problem? Be clear, and what do you want? And I'm not sure that I haven't been able to accomplish what I've wanted to accomplish when I break it down that simply. And I'll tell you one other thing. One of the biggest problems I had younger in my career is I wasn't invited into the meetings I thought I should be in. I wasn't in the room. And that really frustrated me because I felt like a hired gun. Somebody else made the decisions, and then they came and told Danielle what the decision was, and here's what I want you to do. That sucks. So I had to think to myself two things. One, what's the problem? I just stated it. What do I want? I want to be in the room. So I have to ask. I have to ask for that. I did. It changed, not completely. It changed a little bit. There was probably a reason I wasn't in the room. I was younger, the rest were guys. We've had that conversation already a little bit earlier, right? The second thing is look inside and change yourself. I decided, you know what? Screw you. I don't want to be in the room. And I just changed. If I'm not in the room, I'm not responsible for that choice. And when you screw it up, guess who's going to be there telling you, hey, how about next time we don't do it this way? And I have gotten so happy not being in the room that I don't know. I think like before you could smell a desperation on me. Like I wanted to be there so badly. And now it's like, well, can we get Danielle in? And I don't want to be in any of these meetings. Like I want to be in as few meetings as possible. And I've just asked to be in all the meetings. So, there's a little bit of a strategy there to just find your own path, do your own thing, and the rest will find you. And I'll just say one other thing on this, which is surround yourself with people who speak up for you in rooms you're not in. You have got to find your people. There will be, now to Krista's point, they can burn you. I have been burned, but you can't do it alone. So find some alliances in the organization and work to strengthen them, and make sure that when you're not in a room, there's somebody in there that will speak up for you.
I love that. We had a question come through about how to show up for the next generation of women in law. And, we talked a little bit about, I think, some shared experiences with not having the generation before us reach their hand out and help pull some of us up on this panel. And we should do better. What are some recommendations that you have? Danielle, I'll start with you, for how to show up for the women on your team.
Yeah, so I do a couple of things. Some of them are silly and some of them matter. So the first is I have this Step Up app, and anybody who on my team wants to join joins, and we all nudge each other to get up and walk during the day, stuff like that. I have a text message chain where we just share information about like great things that happen with our families, or a picture of our dog, or a meme, just to get each other. You know, it's tough to be on a legal team. You take a lot of brute force from the organization, mostly the sales team. So I do things like that. But I do one other thing, which is I establish a baseline with everybody who works for me, through it could take a year, but to get to know somebody. And then you know when somebody is spinning out of control. You know when they're working too fast and they're missing things, when they just get into paper pushing mode and not like substantive, I'm trying to figure this out. You know when something is off. And in those situations, I don't get irritated. I try not to get irritated with them. I can get irritated, but like, you know, you recover. I try not to get, and I just say, hey, something's not right here. And typically they haven't figured out what their problem is or what they want, right? So they haven't figured that out yet. So it comes out in like this. And I'm like, okay, you're done. You're done. No more business game for you for the next week. You're done. And if I see you answer an email, I'm shutting it off. And I just force timeout. I force a timeout because, you know, Ashley, we're talking about boundaries. It is one of the hardest things to do for ourselves. So I view one of my roles is to put boundaries around my people. And when I think that they can't handle it anymore, either because they're sort of eroding their own reputation because they're so stressed out, or I don't know, they're just, you know, when somebody's not on, I take them out of the game. And it doesn't affect their performance. It doesn't affect their promotion path. It is me showing up for another person and saying, no, it's Wednesday. You can't, no, I don't want to talk to you until Monday. Nobody's allowed to talk. I'll just pick on Meg. Nobody's allowed to talk to Meg. Anybody talks to Meg, you're in trouble. And what's 2 days, 3 days gonna do to your business? But the goodwill that it'll generate, the way that they're able to sort of refresh themselves, I don't know, that seems to work for me. And they do it to me, by the way.
Two-way street there. Ashley, what about you? What are some suggestions you have for how to pull the next generation of women in law forward?
I think it's really about leading by example, and making sure that the women you're surrounding yourself with, and the women who are following in our footsteps, understand the importance of self-reflection and self-awareness, and understanding how to make the right decisions for them, and prioritizing themselves. I feel as though, at least throughout my career and some of my colleagues' careers, when we aren't doing that, we aren't making the best decisions. We aren't putting our best foot forward. We don't understand the ramifications of some of our decisions. We're just going along with emotions, and no one wants to look at their personal life or their career and say, oh, I just did this because I was under pressure or under the heat of the gun, and I didn't take the time to say, does this actually benefit me? Is this something that's going to benefit the organization I'm working for? Is it going to benefit my life at all? And I think making sure that women understand and know that it's okay to prioritize yourself. No, it's not okay. It's important to prioritize yourself on a day-to-day basis, no matter how small or how big that prioritization is. You lose that, you're really doing yourself a disservice. And I think that's at least something that I'm going to take and impart on everyone around me and everyone to follow.
That's awesome. Chris, I have a question for you that came in. I'd love to get your take on. What role do you believe male allies play in advancing gender equality and empowerment within the legal profession? Can you share a situation where you've had to engage in an uncomfortable conversation with a male colleague to address inclusion issues?
Yes.
Hot topic.
Okay, so 2 questions, right? 2 questions there. The first one, what role do male allies play? Let me be honest. I was thinking during when Danielle was talking about like who the best bosses that I've have been, and you know what? They've all been male. Maybe it's just in-house community, I don't know, but the bosses that invested in me, that got me, that gave me freedom, that gave me wings, that gave me a seat at the table were all men. And I was starting to think, why? I think because of stereotypes, the idea of women in the workforce and balancing motherhood and everything. Women historically have been tougher on other women to make themselves look tough, right? It's like a mid-level management kind of problem, right? So you think of, I've heard so many stories about female judges not allowing a continuance for a hearing, right, because of a pregnancy or whatever, like crazy stuff, but because of things that have been pushed onto them, right, in their own journey. And you're like, oh, you struggled with that. How could you not understand? So I think, like, circle that to the question about how to show up, right? Like, we actually have to act more like good male managers than women managers, because I think that when you find the right fit for you in, you know, in your particular career path with a manager, it doesn't mean that you can't have a good woman manager. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, if I look at my path, and like of the 6 direct supervisors I've had over 15 years, I've had one woman and 5 men, and the 5 men have all been fantastic, right? The woman was not. Maybe it's just one woman, I don't know. But like, I'm thinking of the similar traits that all of these men have, and it was that they got it, right? They weren't, you know, 60s, 70s, like that elder generation, right? They're men in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, that have been around, that have families, that are more connected to the younger generation than the older generation, and get it. And I think we need to just act more like them, right? We don't need to be difficult and tough on our female subordinates, like just because someone was tough on us, or to try to make us look like we're tougher, right? That's where I think like that kind of inner work and understanding yourself and like all of those things really pays off. So really, I think men, the ones that I've worked with, most of them that have been in my direct superiors, like, thank you. Like, you have really helped me figure out my comfort, how I can have it all, right? How I could figure out what that means for me, whatever that was going to be. So like that's really worked for me. And I think that's a really great gift. And I think we could do better as women leaders to act more like the men, where it's like, yes, this is okay. Of course, this is okay, right? These are human beings that work for us. Companies are made by people. The second question, engaging in uncomfortable conversations with males. Oh my gosh. I will be honest with you. I am not lacking discomfort or I'm not lacking comfort in confrontation. I'm not aggressive, but I am assertive. And so I have no issue calling things out in a tactful way, of course. But like, I've had several conversations in the last few years about men who only enjoy working with women when they're secretaries, right? Like, many men have a hard time working with women who run shit, right? Who make things happen, who move and shake rooms, and who get deals done, who lead deals, who lead negotiations. Some men, I'm not even saying attorneys, actually, most of the people I'm referring to are non-attorneys, really struggle with women who are in charge and who are assertive and are very good at their jobs. And I have no problem calling that. How do you do that though, right? How do you bring those up? Sometimes it's direct, sometimes it's HR, right? I've done it all. I have said to these male superiors, or, you know, horizontal, lateral, functional group leaders, like, is there an issue, like, with me running like this deal? Like, I'm the lawyer on the deal. Like, is there a problem? Because I feel like we're like butting heads when we're working together, and it seems like it's not because of substantive reasons, right? Like, I don't have a problem calling it out. Again, 15 years into my career, I feel comfort in doing that. Earlier in my career, I didn't have that same approach. I was probably much more akin to like, hey, Jocelyn, like, what is Matt's problem? Like, why is this happening? Right? But like, I think that's a little bit of figuring it out, right? Like, a little bit of what comes with learning. Like, is it actually okay? Is this normal? You don't know until you're working for a number of years, like, what dynamics even look like in office. But I will say that the biggest problem I've encountered when it comes to gender stuff is men that do not know how to work with women who are in charge and control, and historically look at women as more secretarial of sorts.
Yeah, that is good advice for how to approach it tactfully. I know earlier in my career, it was one of those, like, I'm just going to let you call me bossy. I'm not really sure how to handle that right now, because I made a decision, right? but it's something I think you learn, and hopefully that's something we can reach our hand out to those who are newer in the field and kind of share those tips and tricks for how to have the hard conversations, because
And we
it's
can teach
important.
our kids, right? Like
Yes.
my daughter came home telling me she was called bossy on the playground. And I was like, you know what girl bosses do? They become president, right? They run companies. Like 5-year-old and bossy, great, all day.
Yep.
And let me talk to your teacher, by the way, and talk and have her discuss why that's so important as a characteristic in a 5-year-old girl, right? So like we have
Yep.
to impact from the beginning. And it's, our teaching isn't just in our workplaces, right? It's with our husbands, it's with our partners too, right? Like because sometimes those are the ones that have the most like toxic masculinity and like this view of femininity, like that it's supposed to be. And we can blur those lines, like we can be everything.
Yep. Absolutely. One thing that I think a lot of professionals, female professionals, face from time to time is imposter syndrome and feeling like you're maybe not enough. Ashley, could you kick us off? Like, how do you, what advice do you have for folks who are battling imposter syndrome as a female lawyer?
I think the biggest thing is probably identifying where the feeling is stemming from. Because I mean, the root of it could be so many different things. And I think once you understand the root of why you're feeling that way, you're going to be able to identify roots and supports to help you navigate through it. Because there's, you know, if someone within your organization or someone within your life is making you feel like an imposter, maybe they're challenging your knowledge consistently or your worth within your role. Um, you know, like I said before, don't give that opinion any power. You know, let those be words in the wind and build up your self-confidence and surround yourself with individuals who support your career and uplift you. Know that your knowledge is powerful, and that goes a really long way. And I think earlier in my career, I didn't know who those people were or where that what those supports look like. I didn't know that they were out there. I thought it was like I gotta just figure this out all on my own and you know fake it till I make it and you know there's something to be positively said about that, but also like you don't want to feel that on your back day in and day out. You just want to feel some days you just want to feel comfortable. You just want to feel good. Like you don't want anything to get in the way of that. So I think really doing that self-reflection, understanding the root of it, and getting those really strong supports is really how to combat the imposter syndrome.
Love that answer.
I'll add to that. So two things. The first is my husband would say to me over and over and over again, stop worrying so much. Nobody else knows what you're supposed to be doing either. Like no, everybody else is making it up, and you happen to be on the legal team, so they know even less about, you know, how to take you to task. So just, you know, do the best you can, and don't say things like that. You don't say things that you don't know. It's okay to say, "Oh no, that's a really good question. I'm going to check into it." Just like get your grab bag of answers. You're not supposed to know everything. You're supposed to be resourceful. So say to yourself, like, I know how to get answers. I know how to figure out solutions. I may not know the answer while I'm standing on my feet listening to you, but that's not what anybody's really asking. And I think imposter syndrome comes very much when you say things that you don't know. So, and don't feel compelled to do that. Like your job is to research, your job is to put together solutions. The second thing is I have this article on my desk. I have like, so where I'm sitting, I have these two huge columns and I post stuff up that I feel motivating and inspiring. And one of the things I've had it for 17 years. It's now crinkly and like a different color, is a Newsweek article. And it's Marissa Mayer on the day she broke the internet. And the article is just a couple paragraphs, and it was her favorite mistake that she's made. And she like took the internet down for a while. And I mean, if Marissa Mayer can do that, I'm not going to show up with imposter syndrome on a day-to-day basis. I'm just going to be honest about what I know, what I can do, and earnest about trying to get to the other side of that, and help my teammates. And little by little, you chip away at that imposter syndrome.
I love
And
it.
there's an exercise to this. If I were to ask Ashley, what's one of your hobbies?
Painting,
Painting. If I were to oil, acrylic,
acrylic.
acrylic. So if I were to ask you about acrylic painting, and I were to ask you about, what your style is like and who some of your favorite, artists are, you would talk to me in a certain way. If I said, I want to have a conversation about indirect damages and what the how you quantify sort of indirect damages and how you can put that into a contract, you might speak to me inside. You might feel two very different things. You know acrylics. You can talk about it. You feel sure about it. You feel confident about it. If you get asked a question where you get that feeling inside where you're like, oh, I don't, like, even I have to go look up like indirect damages and like what that amounts to, whatever. Don't talk. That's how you don't have imposter syndrome. Don't talk. Say, I got to go educate myself. I'll be right back. And you know what it feels like when you're talking about something you know.
Absolutely. I was like, please don't actually ask me that question right now, Danielle. Because I thought she was like leading into asking me about acrylics and then throwing that out. I was like, oh man, I don't have to say. I'm gonna have to go look that up. I am not comfortable answering that right now.
Love that.
Amazing. Amazing. So we have about 1 minute left. What I would love to do is just a rapid fire. One word that you wish folks could take with them to keep in the back of their mind and help, propel their career forward. And I think I can kick us off. For me, adaptable. Remain adaptable. Be willing to change. You're going to get thrown things every step of the way. And it's about how you react, not necessarily about the thing that you had to face.
I'd say boundaries. It's something that changes throughout time. You're always going to have to learn how to set up new ones, break some down. It's one of those ongoing skills.
And not to just kind of circle back to all of our things we said earlier, but I was going to say unapologetic, right? Like that's what's really I found has worked for me, to lean into what it is, answering Danielle's question, what do you want, right? And leaning into that.
I can't do one word. I have to do two, but I'm not that good of a rule follower. Take risks. Take risks. It is your life. It is your career. Nobody is going to give it to you. Figure out what you want and take risks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We're really glad to have all of you joining us for this session. We hope you have some good takeaways and tips and tricks. And thank you, Ashley, Krista, and Danielle, for sharing all of your insights today. It has been awesome to chat with you, and I hope you all have an amazing rest of the week. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ashley. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much.